Okay, so today we're going to talk about building a team. This is the second part to the presentation I did last week. And today's discussion is going to be when should you start building your team, the process and the knowledge to build a successful team, the importance of teaching instructors your methods of teaching in business, the difference between a shadow/junior instructor, because everybody uses a different term, an assistant instructor, and instructors. Today it's mainly going to be about assistant instructors and instructors. Developing your staff's strengths and weaknesses, treating instructors with respect and the importance of communication, the do's and don'ts, and what I call giving up control. Okay, so we're going to talk about creating your crew. So nothing is more important than having a dojo crew that you can trust, personally and in business. And this is one of the reasons why I started training my team from the time they were very young, because everybody that works for me, I've known since they were a little kid. Okay, so that's important to me, to have that kind of trust with my instructors. It's important for me personally and in business, okay? Because if I'm going to leave them in charge of my dojo, I want to know who they are. I want to know who their families are. So it should be important to everybody. I don't bring outside people in, people I've only known for 3 to 6 months, and let them run my dojo or teach my kids. So everybody should kind of follow that rule, and because it's bad to bring in outside people. The 3 musts for a successful dojo is, besides location and chief instructor, that's a given, are a working website, proper advertising, and a crew of competent, reliable instructors, okay? And types of instructors. I always like to have a woman and a man in the dojo, hopefully at the same time. If you're starting out and you've only got 40, 50 students, you're not going to have that, okay? But by the time you get to 40 or 50 students, maybe there is a 12 or 13-year-old teenager who's kind of ready to want to be a shadow, and it could be a girl, and you can bring them in, and while you're teaching group class, you have a female presence in the room. It just makes people feel comfortable, okay? You can have young instructors. Those are your shadows and your junior instructors. You can have older instructors, which are what I call the regular instructors, anybody that's usually 18 and older. I've got people at my school that assist that are 11, 12 years old, and my 2 oldest instructors are in their 60s, okay? Craig's been with me for over 25 years. He's retired. And Peter's been with me for about 8 years, and he is semi-retired. All right, different skill sets. When you have a bigger school, when you start getting up to the 150 plus, you're going to find that your instructors that you've been teaching, they have different skill sets. They're better at some things. They might be better at sparring. They might be better at grappling. They might be better at technique, working with people who have special needs. So I wrote those examples down because those are the differences at my dojo. Nico is awesome at sparring and sparring techniques. So if anybody wants to specifically work on those, I usually send them with Nico. Okay, grappling techniques, Advait is really good at it. We have an instructor in Danville, Jerice. He's been there about 7 years. He actually is a black belt in judo, and we have him run a judo class there. And we're learning a bunch of really cool stuff. Really nice guy, works for Oracle. He's actually coming out to our dojo to do a class. So, I trust the guy. He's a really nice guy. His son takes martial arts with us. Very respectful. So, we're kind of like learning from each other. Technique is me at the dojo. If somebody needs to refine something, they come see me. Working with people who have special needs, I do that too, but that's mainly for Sensei Evan at my dojo. Evan is training to be a physical therapist. So we have a kid that has come in that has cerebral palsy. Kids like that, I usually make work with Evan because he knows a little bit more about the body than even I do. So that's really good. Okay, make sure your instructors understand your system of doing business. All right, how you write down your work hours, the bathroom duties. For us, online folder entries, the hardest thing to do, which is scheduling. Okay, so they need to know your system. Okay, so it makes it easier for everybody else, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, steps to building a team. We talked about the shadow program last week. These are kids that are ages 11 to 17, and like I said, they're going to start the shadow program when they're 16 or 17. That's a little on the, the older end, but, I don't want to discourage anybody from being an instructor, so I take them up to that age. You start them young, you teach them responsibility. The shadows do not get paid, okay? This is where they have to show you that they want to be there and that they want to put in the time to eventually be an instructor, okay? You should start the program when you have approximately 40 students or so, okay? So when you get up to 40 or 50 students and you're finding that maybe you've got a couple of times during the day where you have a private lesson going on and maybe a kids group class and you don't feel comfortable switching the time, you can teach your assistant instructor, to, run them through some jumping jacks and running in place while you're working with a private lesson, and then maybe you can send your assistant over to do a little light sparring with the student. Okay, unless they're an adult, then you don't do that. But maybe if it's a young kid, they can spar with the kid for a few minutes while you're running the group class through some basics. So you probably don't even need an assistant at this point, but if you don't start training them at a certain point in time, when you get to that 100, 125, 150 mark, you're not going to have any qualified assistants. So this is a good time to start. The assistant instructors are ages 15 to 17. These are usually your black belts with the red stripes, okay? So these are kids you're not going to leave in charge of your dojo, but they don't need to be babysat anymore, okay? They can take on a shadow. They can pass down their knowledge that they learned in camp slowly over time. They can take on more responsibility. So these are the kids who are have responsibility for their own work hours. If they can't work, they don't call me and tell me they can't work. They have to find coverage. Okay, I'm not their mom, so they have to learn from the start that if they need a day off for whatever reason, they're going to have to figure out how to get somebody at the dojo and cover for them. I usually pay these kids minimum wage and up. It depends on their skills, okay? Hire someone when you get to 100 students. So by the time you get to 100 students, and nobody needs an assistant, a paid assistant, before they get to 100 students, this is the time where you can bring in that kid that has maybe gone to your camp for 3 years, or a camp in your area for 3 years, or maybe you don't have a camp, but you've been training them consistently for 3 or 4 years. So you bring them on, and now you have a good assistant, okay? Instructors, these are usually instructors 18 and up. Now we don't have a red stripe through our belt. These are the older people, and the difference between an instructor and an assistant instructor is their pay is probably going to be a little bit higher, okay? And if you needed to step out of the dojo to run errands, you know that you could leave them in charge of the dojo, okay? Nobody under the age of 18 should be left in charge of your dojo, ever. It would be better for you to shut down for the day than leave somebody unqualified and too young to run your dojo, and then you're going to get sued. Okay, so have somebody in there that's over 18. Your adult instructors have now been trained with you from the time they were kids. At the stage, they can run all aspects of your dojo. So a competent instructor also is somebody that can actually run the dojo while you step out. Okay. Usually, by the time you get to 100 students, maybe you hire one instructor. By the time you get to 125 plus, you probably have 2 instructors. Now, I put pay accordingly in the brackets because every area is different, okay? I know that Northern California is a different animal, okay? In our area, and I probably said this before, you're not going to keep an instructor unless you pay $20+ an hour. It's not going to happen. Starbucks is paying $15, $16 an hour and giving these people stock. Okay, so unless you're paying more money in our area, and minimum wage is $13.50 anyway in this area. So unless you're paying your instructors decent money, they're going to walk when they get old enough. Okay, because the market is saturated here and they can go get a job anywhere. So that will depend on your area. I put a slide in to show you guys the difference. So here's Zev. Zev's one of my shadows. I've been on crutches for the last 6 weeks. So I've had Zev like standing right next to me. He's teaching DM3 here. Okay, so these are 2 of my new yellow belts, obviously. So while I'm watching and listening, he's teaching these kids how to do DM3. And then if I need to interject, I will. This is Sensei Eli. He's only 16, so he's got a black belt with a red stripe. He's teaching these 2 kids a lesson. I don't have to watch Eli anymore. He went to camp for his 3 years. He's already sold people programs. He knows how to answer the phone. He understands my schedule, so I don't need to babysit him anymore. But like I said, I would not leave him in charge of my dojo. And then, of course, this is Nico, and Nico's got a set of 3 kids here, advanced ranks that he's putting together for sparring techniques, and Nico runs my dojo all the time. Okay. The process and knowledge to build a team. So this is probably going to be one of the most important slides of the entire presentation, okay? Because not everybody, I don't care what rank you are, first degree black belt, well into the master levels. If you don't have 150 or so plus students in your school, you probably have not developed a good team, okay? Because if you developed a good team, that team is helping you bring students in. They're helping you run your dojo when you're not there, okay? And if you've developed a good team, that's usually telling us that you have a good work ethic, okay? So if you have under 100 students, and many schools do, they have 50 to 75 roughly, okay? You probably don't have the skills yet to build a team, but that doesn't mean that you can't get those skills, okay? I always tell people you don't need assistant instructors until the 100-person mark, okay? So this is when you're bringing on your paid instructor, okay? And by this point, you're probably bringing on a paid instructor, and you probably have 1 or 2 shadows that are coming into the dojo a couple times a week on their own and helping you out with group class, okay? So you really should need more than 100 students. Okay, at around 40 to 50 students, you should be looking for your shadows. Find 1 or 2. Okay, if you train them and then they'll eventually become assistant instructors when they're old enough, you won't have to go find somebody to work at your dojo. Okay, who's not trained. Whoever you choose to be a shadow should have 2 to 3 years experience shadowing before they become assistant instructors. Now, in our area, that's junior camp. Okay. In your area, it might be you, because the junior camp thing is pretty much just me, I think, right now. I don't know if other areas are doing it, all right? And you want to make sure that you put the time into them. They can run a group class. They can run a private lesson. They understand the schedule, okay? You don't take on a shadow or an assistant, send them out into your dojo, and then you go sit in an office. If you do that, you're never going to grow past the 60 or 70 mark, ever. Because what you got to remember, and my grandfather told me this because my whole family's been in business their whole life. When people sign up with you or they come to your place of business, usually they're coming there for you. They want your knowledge. They want you to teach them, okay? Now, when you get up to 150 plus students, let's face it, you're not teaching all of them, all right? But by that point, if you've built a great team, you have people coming into the dojo who pretty much want to just work with Nico, or pretty much want to just work with Evan. Or, of course, you have a lot that still want to just work with you. But whoever your assistant is at the time, okay, they're building their own student base too. So in my dojo, because I have like 5 instructors from the time between 4 and 7, all these instructors have their own students. And this is why we've managed to get up to the past 200 mark, okay? But if they were all counting on just me to be there, okay, how am I going to teach 200 students by myself? It would be very difficult. I'm sure it could be done, especially if you're like Master Turner. You know, he's amazing at, you know, the 6-person private, but not everybody can do that. So if you start training them young, then they start getting their own base, okay? Eli, for instance, he's only 16, but Eli's got about 12 students who just want to work with him, okay? And that's great. Those are 12 students that I don't have to worry about, that Nico doesn't have to worry about. because they're counting on Eli, okay? So the important thing about the assistant instructor, because we are really concentrating on the assistant instructor and the main instructor today, is that once these kids become assistant instructors, that 15 to 17-year-old gap where you start paying them, they don't need to be watched at this point, okay? But this person does not teach all the lessons and is not even close to being ready to run your dojo, okay? So I've already said this, don't leave them in charge and don't go sit in your office and watch them teach all the lessons. Okay, if you do that, your studio will not grow. Okay, the importance of teaching your business and your teaching system. Okay, if you have more than 150 plus students, and at this point, all right, if you're charging the $205 a month or whatever you charge in your area, the $205 is standard right now, I believe. Okay, and you're bringing in Bushido, you're buying Bushido stuff, and you're doing testing. Okay, your studio at this time is probably making about $350,000 a year. You're not making that, but your studio is. If you're making $350,000 a year, you're probably making about half of that. Okay, about $175,000. Okay, so if you have more than 150 students and a competent, reliable staff, your methods are working. Okay, so whatever your methods are, they're working for you and your staff. Now, it is important to teach your methods to your staff, because if you want to branch out and open other schools, then you're probably going to use your method in all your schools in case you have to go back and forth. So I've used a couple of examples of my methods. Now, it's not the cure-all. You may like your method better, and that's great, okay? But use something and stick with it. Don't let other people do a different method, because then you can't just comfortably move in and out of multiple dojos and know what's going on. The one example I like to use is scheduling. If everyone can glance at your schedule and know what each entry means, this will make the day go by smoother and will make future scheduling easier. Everybody messes up the schedule. Me and my instructors, even though we're all knowledgeable of the schedule, we still have problems. Okay, mistakes get made. Scheduling is one of the hardest things to do. I can't stress that enough. And when you have a couple hundred students, it's even worse. Okay, so what I did is I am going to show you guys my schedule real quick. So this is my online schedule that I use, and I'm going to use Tuesday for example. So my instructors know that I've got it blocked off. The times that they work are here. Okay, and you're going to see if the names are in black, that means that's a regular time. So when I go to my master copy down here and make a copy of my schedule and add on my weeks, these are people that have ongoing lessons. Okay, they're in black. That means their private lessons are set. Green means I have an intro lesson. In parentheses, I put my initial because I'm the one who set it up. If Nico sets it up, he puts ND in there. And then if we sign that person up, I know who to give commissions to. So this really helped with me paying out commissions when they got an enrollment. Nikki's testing today. Testing's in purple. Tristan's in red. He's got a makeup. Okay. And then over here on my schedule, I put what the color codes mean just in case they forget. Okay. So this makes our schedule easier. If you like it, you may borrow it. Okay. If you don't like it, find something that works for you, but be consistent. When I go to Danville, Advait uses the exact same method. So when I walk into Danville, I know if I'm teaching an ongoing lesson every single week, if I have to cover for him, okay, at the same time, or I know that this kid is doing a makeup or there's a test going on, it just makes the scheduling easier, okay? And it helps my guys too, since all of us are going back and forth between both dojos. Expectations. If everyone knows that they must clean up after class, for instance, this allows transitioning into the next class faster. So my assistant instructors and my shadows, they know that when a class ends, if there are bags all over the floor, knives all over the floor, clubs, whatever, okay, they know that as soon as the class is over, my shadows, they run around the dojo and they just start cleaning up and putting everything back. Because if my class is 45 minutes and one class goes from 5 to 5:45 and the next class goes from 5:45 to 6:30, I don't want to spend 5 minutes of the next class cleaning up. So as soon as that class ends, they collect everything, they put it away, the next class comes and lines up, okay? And they know that because we've trained them to do that, okay? Collecting money is another big one. With 2 schools, gets a little confusing. I know every student in Belmont, Danville, not so much, okay? So if your instructors know how to log in the cash or check payments, because not everybody does credit card, they just don't, that will leave out the confusion of having to ask for what the payment's for. So my system is I have a folder in both desks. Somebody comes in, drops off a check or a cash. I go through a lot of envelopes, but envelopes don't cost a lot of money. They take an envelope. If I'm not there, they put the cash or the check in an envelope. They seal it. They write down the name of the student, how much is supposed to be in there, and whether it's for testing, monthly tuition, whatever. So that if I want to go log it into the computer, it's done. I'm trying to train them how to log things into the computer too. Okay. So if they log it into the computer, they'll just write on the envelope already logged in. Okay. So my system, if you guys like it, I can explain it further. If you don't like it and you like your system, great. Okay. But be consistent. Okay. Strengths and weaknesses of your instructors. If most of your instructors were shadows or junior instructors, okay, by the time they become instructors, you should already know their strengths and weaknesses and have been working on improving them. Okay. So if you've been working with these kids since the time they were 4 or 5 years old, and then they became shadows when they were like 11, 12 years old, and then they became assistant instructors, you're going to know these kids. Okay. You're going to know their personalities, what they like, what they dislike. Okay. How they're going to react around other kids, whether they're good for group lessons, private lessons. You're just going to know it because they've spent pretty much their whole life with you. Okay. What you have to understand is some weaknesses they will never outgrow. Okay. So compromise works at this point. Once again, do not get mad at people if they can't do something. Do not expect them to do something outside of their capabilities. Okay, so I'm going to use the example of cleaning versus making calls. Nico is a clean freak. I think I said this last week too. Nico comes into my dojo early. He vacuums the mats. He washes the mats. He dusts. He cleans the bathroom. It's amazing. When I walk into my dojo, it is clean. Okay, but Nico does not like to make phone calls. He does not like to talk to people on the phone. Okay, it's just not his thing. Okay, so I made a compromise. He keeps this dojo as clean as he is. I don't mind returning all the phone calls when I get in. Okay, so I don't expect him to do that. Now, if I'm not there, okay, of course he's going to have to do that. But what I'm doing right now is I'm training Eli how to do it because Eli's better at it. Okay, so you can find out other ways around it. All right, if you only have one assistant, then you might have to make some concessions. All right, but usually you're not going to be gone that long, so it's not going to be a big deal unless you're going on vacation for a couple of weeks. If one way does not work, find another way to do it. Okay, making calls versus emails. Since Nico doesn't like to make phone calls, I always ask people for their emails. I put them in Zen Planner. If somebody calls, I usually say, can you leave your number and an email and we'll get back to you one way or another. So Nico doesn't mind sending an email to somebody. So, hey, if that works for him, then I don't mind asking for the person's email and getting back to them by email. Honestly, I prefer it. I don't like talking to people on the phone. And some of you guys, if you're talking on the phone too, are probably talking yourselves out of sales. People start asking about prices and so on. By email, it's just, hi, this is Linda with United Studios. I see you'd like a complimentary lesson. Here are the dates and times. When would you like to come in? And that kind of ends it. They come in and then we can talk about everything afterwards. So that prohibits you guys from making some mistakes that a lot of people make when talking on the phone. Okay, student folders versus online folders. The student folders that we had, the USSD folders with paper in it, the instructors hated them. The kids were leaving them at the dojo. Papers were everywhere. So now that everything is online, they can go home and fill them out whenever they want. Great system, cleaner, saves trees. It just works so much better. And I love making that compromise. And it took me about 4 hours to set them up. But after that, it works great for our studio. Okay. Do not expect someone to do something outside of their capabilities. Now, if somebody, an instructor of yours, is really against asking for money, talking to potential clients, they just can't do it. Okay. Do not make them a chief instructor. Okay. Do not leave them in charge of your dojo. Maybe they make a great instructor and they can teach private and group classes, but they're never going to be chiefs. So don't expect them to step up if they just don't have it in them. And some people don't. Okay? So you can't force them. You can't get mad at them. If they want to just be an instructor and they want to work for you, that's great. Okay? Not everybody is going to reach chief. Okay. And then learn from your team. Your team is probably a bunch of young people that know about computers, that know about what life is like outside, that, you know, we're all a little bit older, that maybe we don't know about something. These kids are always telling me about new apps that come out and new ways to market and whatever. So learn from them. That online schedule that I used, I actually got that from Ed Bate. Okay. He showed me how to do it. We love it. We adopted it. So if they have some good ideas, don't be against them. Try it out. If it doesn't work for you, then scrap it, okay? But don't close yourself off because I've been doing it this way for 10 years. If you've been doing it that way for 10 years and you still have 50 students, 75 students, or only 100 students, it's time to get a new way. Okay, communication and responsibility. I have meetings with my instructors all the time. They're people. They get mad, they get sad, they get emotional, okay? Things happen. So I like to check in. Every week I sit down with my instructors, 10-minute weekly check-in. Sometimes it doesn't take 10 minutes, and don't tell me you don't have 10 minutes to check in with your instructors, okay? Everybody has time. If you have 100 students and you double them up on private lesson, that's 50 private lesson and half an hour spots. That's 25 hours a week, not including maybe the 10 group classes that you have. Okay, you got plenty of time. You're sitting around at some point in your office doing nothing. You can sit down and ask your instructors what's going on. Okay, it's good to check in. It makes them feel like you're paying attention to them. All right, have monthly staff meetings. Every single month, I pick a day. I take all my guys out to breakfast. We sit down. We talk about any problems. I answer questions. If they have questions for each other, they go back and forth. If they're mad about something, they hash it out at the table. We don't hold anything personally. We let it go. We figure out what we need to do to fix it. We move on. Okay? So do that. If you can't get them all together at the same time, I'm having that issue right now because Evan's in school and it's a little harder. Then maybe you have to find a time during the middle of the day. Yesterday, between 2 and 3, we had no instructors. All 3 of us were there. We had our meeting. Okay, so we find out when we can do it. I bought him a cup of coffee and we sat down and we hashed out what we need to do for the following month. Do it a month in advance. April meetings are for May. May meetings are for June. So make sure that you have a schedule book or an online schedule or your phone or whatever it is you need to do and work it out. I like a book. I write everything down. It makes it easier for me. That's my old school. I like it. Okay. The instructors need to understand that your door is always open. If they walk in your office and they have a question, you're not going to look at them and go, you know, I told you that 20 times. What's wrong with you? Okay. That's what not to do. Okay. What you do is go, okay, next time I sign somebody up, since you couldn't figure out how to put the person in Zen Planner, we'll run through it again. Okay. Right way, wrong way. Okay. You create new ideas with your team. You want to make things easier. You want to make your business more successful. If you see problem areas, discuss with each one and give them some examples of how they can overcome their issue. We had a cleaning problem about a year ago. The assistant instructors, they would use all this equipment, they'd drop it on the floor, and when they were going to leave for work, they'd walk out the door. Well, I put Nico in charge of this. Since Nico's the one who cleans, he was coming in every morning and just, you know, nobody's in the dojo, but he's just, he's cussing up a storm and he's mad because there's cups in the lobby and bags all over the floor. And he's like, what's with these kids? I go, you got to train them. So what he did was he said, okay, at the end of every class, you shadows are going to do this. Dojo's spotless at all times because we have them. So I gave him the responsibility, and we're going to talk about giving up responsibility at the end and how to do that. Okay, actually, we're going to talk about it now. Let the team teach. Okay, the final stage of having a great team is to give them the responsibility of running your dojo while you're away and allowing them to train the next team. This is what I call giving up control. For a chief instructor, this is the hardest thing. I didn't bring on an assistant until I had 100 students. It was actually over 100 students, and it was Mike Delfino. So if you want to ask Mike, ask him when I brought on somebody. And he begged me to let him teach. He kept asking me, when can I teach? When can I teach? And I didn't want to. I didn't want to bring anybody else on, but I did. And when I brought Mike on, about 25 students later, that's when I brought Robbie on, and Robbie became a shadow. So it takes a while to get used to the idea of letting people run your dojo. Okay. It did for me anyway, because I don't like to give up control. It's just me. Okay. So to give up control to an instructor takes years. Now, this is what people don't understand. If you have a shadow and you have some kind of program, say that 3-year shadow program, camp program, and they became a shadow when they were 12, let's just make it easy. And they did camp for at 12, at 13, and at 14. That's 3 years. Now, by the time they became 15 years old, they became an assistant instructor. Okay. Now, yes, they can do things on their own, but they're not old enough to run your dojo. So now they're an assistant instructor at 15, 16, 17. So now that's 6 years of training under you. Okay. By the time they get to be 18, 19 years old, they've already put in 8, 9+ years of working for you. They know how you operate. You know how they operate. You know what they're capable of. They know how you're going to feel about certain things, regardless of what it is, scheduling or whatever. So now you can maybe leave them in charge. Okay. But when you leave them in charge, and we're going to talk about this down the road, you're going to leave them in charge for a small period of time and work your way up. So once you have a competent staff in a thriving school, this frees up your time and allows you to attend to other business like marketing and enrollments. So now, all you people that say you have no time, if you've got a 150+ school and your instructors are out there teaching and you have a bunch of assistants and maybe you get a break during the day because somebody doesn't show up, or, you have to attend to marketing, you can take 15, 20 minutes and go in your office and do that. All right. It allows you time to travel for meetings. So now you can go down to LA if you need to leave one of your instructors in charge for 2 days or so. You can go on vacation. You can, and you feel comfortable leaving your instructors in charge of your dojo when you can't be there. I had to be out for the last month. I took 2 weeks off when I had my foot surgery. I've been on crutches ever since, but I left Nico in charge. While I was gone, they signed up 4 people. Okay. I had no complaints. It was amazing. Okay. So I know that I'm doing a good job. Okay. A little pat on the back for me, but these guys are competent enough to do it. Okay. The more time the instructors spend running the dojo without you there, the more their confidence grows and the more comfortable you'll feel leaving them in charge. With enough time and personal growth, some may even want to be chief instructors. Hence Advait, picture down below. He's 21 years old. He runs the Danville dojo. We're going to be leaving. He's going to be leaving in 2 weeks because he's getting called up. He's in the reserves. He's going to be gone for about a year. So me, Nico, and Evan are going to be rotating back and forth between Belmont and Danville. We can do that because Eli and Holly, 2 of my main assistant instructors, they're stepping up and working every day of the week. So I lost a guy, but I got coverage. We worked it out. Okay. And not only that, I've got about 4 or 5 other assistant instructors who aren't as good as Eli and Holly, but they're going to be working. We've got a great crew in Danville that Advait has been working with. And I've got a bunch of shadows who are going to go to camp. I've got 6 third years that are going to be moving up this year. So competent staff. We didn't have a problem with Advait leaving. Okay. The dues, instructors only. So this is your assistant instructors and your instructors. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is just instructors. To start, leave them in charge of your dojo for a few hours, then a day, and then gradually put them in charge for longer periods of time. So what you want to do is you don't want to have an instructor who thinks they can run a dojo and then you go on vacation for a week. You're going to have complaints. People are going to start leaving you. Okay. Something's going to happen. It always happens. So you're going to start leaving them in charge for a few hours. Maybe you go to the dollar store or Costco or something, wherever you go. Go pick up your supplies, come back, see how things went. Then maybe you'll leave them in charge for a weekend while you go away for a couple of days. And then over time, you can leave them in charge for a longer period of time. Don't have a brand new instructor who you're like, okay, you're 18, I'll see you in a week. Okay, don't do it. Pay fair wages. If you don't pay your staff, they're going to leave you. Okay, every area is different, so pay accordingly. Some areas of the country, minimum wage is $7. Some areas in the country, minimum wage like here is $13.50. Okay, I already talked about this. An instructor is going to need to be paid more than minimum wage. If you pay them well, they stay. The longer they stay, the longer the students are going to stay that like them, and your school's going to grow exponentially. Keep the communication open. Okay, we talked about this. Give them some responsibility and change up so they gain experience in all areas of running your dojo. So for example, 1 week, let them do all the scheduling. This was the hardest thing for me to give up because scheduling is a mess. Okay, but they can all do it now because I put them in charge of it. The next, put them in charge of speaking to potential students. So if they can do it and they can get signups, great. If you're having a problem with them talking to people, or people are walking out of the dojo because your instructor can't talk to potential students, then this is not the time to leave them in charge. All right, the don'ts. Don't get mad at them or manage with a heavy hand. We talked about this with the shadows. Treat them with respect, always. You start slapping them around, you start bullying them, you get mad at them for not doing something, okay, they're going to leave you. Okay, don't fault them for asking the same questions or not knowing something. If they don't know something, that's your problem, not theirs. Teach them over and over and over again until they're competent at doing the skill. Never leave them in charge or give them duties they aren't ready for. We talked about this. If they're not prepared to handle a situation, that's not their fault. It's yours for not training them to handle it. If you have a homegrown adult student in my dojo would be somebody like Peter. Peter came from Australia. He's been with me for 8 years now. He studied different martial arts in Australia. When he came here, Peter was a really good martial artist, and he always wanted me to show me things from his dojo. Okay, what I had to do with Peter is he wanted to be an instructor. He does instruct at my school, but I wouldn't let him instruct until he knew he got his black belt in the USSD system. He had to know our system. I didn't want him teaching outside stuff to the students that I didn't know. Okay, so I call that a homegrown adult. All right, a homegrown adult, if you have an instructor college in your area, really should go to the instructor college because they need to know our system before we put them as a chief instructor in a dojo. If you don't, they're going to be Buddha heads and they're not going to be able to run a successful dojo. I made that mistake, guys. I did it with Burlingame, with Cherie. Huge mistake. Okay. So, and that was only like 4 or 5 years ago. So I've seen it firsthand what happens when we do that. Okay. Do not bring in martial artists from outside to teach your dojo. Oh, I made a friend with some guy who's a judo instructor or a taekwondo guy who wants to teach kicking at our dojo. Okay. You bring the person in, you just met this person, you don't even know him for a couple of months and already he's running a class. No. Wait till they become black belts in your system. And then if you want them to help out or run a good class and you trust them, then they can do it. Hence Jerice. Jerice has been in the Danville location. We've been there since 2011. So it's been 7 years. He's been there the whole time. Okay. He knows our system. He teaches our system. Yes, he's a black belt in judo and he knows how to teach the judo stuff. So we let him. Okay. But he never says it's better than the USSD stuff. He's never disrespectful to the other instructors. You know, he's always welcoming of outside opinions. It took time. Okay. Do not give away free lessons in lieu of teaching. I see this everywhere. Oh, why don't you come in and teach for me and I'll give you a free extra private because I'm too cheap to pay you. No. If you have an instructor that's coming in your dojo and they're supposed to be working 3 days a week and you're giving them a free lesson, especially if they're younger. Okay. It happens when they're over 18 too, but especially if they're younger, in their head, they're like, oh, I want to go out with my friends today. So I won't go to the dojo and teach today. And I'll just skip my private lesson because it's free anyway. And then they're not going to show up and then you're going to get stuck. Okay. You pay them, you expect them to be there, and you expect them to be responsible to hire coverage if they can't be there. If they don't do it, you fire them. Okay. They pay you, you pay them, period. No independent contractors. Okay. Ever. If you're paying independent contractors, especially if you're in the state of California and California finds out, they will shut your school down when they find out. I got audited a couple of years ago. I don't have any independent contractors and I never will. Okay. It was the first thing that they asked. So be careful. And I know a couple of businesses that are not dojos that got shut down for that. Okay. Final thoughts. Start building your crew young so that by the time they are instructors, they have a stronger foundation. Build your team according to dojo student size. Get one assistant at 100 students, maybe two at 125, and then bringing them on accordingly. Communication is important and a must when building your crew. Treat them with respect, take them out to breakfast, check in with them, make sure everything's okay so that you don't lose instructors, unexpectedly. You will lose assistants because of college and stuff. That's a given, but you should be moving other people up by that point. Give up control at your dojo only when instructors are ready to handle the load, the entire load, running your complete studio, from dealing with the problem parent to asking questions about signing up, to signing people up, to your schedule, to keeping the dojo clean, so on and so forth. If you create a competent, enthusiastic crew, they will produce for you. They will be able to run a successful dojo, especially when you're not there. You'll be able to leave them in charge. Your dojo will grow exponentially, and you will be able to expand and open new dojos with competent instructors. Okay, long presentation, I know, but now I'm going to open everybody up to questions. So hold on one second. I have just unmuted everybody, so if anybody has any questions, you guys can go ahead or type it in the chat bar. Nobody has any questions? Okay, then. There's no question.
Oh, hi, Linda.
Oh, hello.
I have questions.
Okay. Hey, Andrew.
I apologize. This is Andrew from San Carlos.
Yes.
And you probably covered this on the last talk I was not on, but I'm at about 110 with no instructors or shadows.
That's good.
How are you identifying them?
Like the shadows? Okay, well there's some kid in your school that's probably around 11 or 12 years old who comes to every group class, who's always asking you if they can help you clean up. You've put them in charge of, you maybe say, come up here, stand in front of the kids class and, warm them up. Somebody's going to stand out. Okay. And you have to have a kid old enough so that if they're teaching, like I call it tiny tigers, like the 3 to 5 year olds or the 6 to 8 year olds, somebody they have to be. That's why I make the junior instructor around 11 or 12. Somebody at your dojo is standing out and they really want to be an assistant. Okay. So if you have 1, 2, maybe even 3 people that you feel that they are, ready to be assistants, send them to my camp and I will train them. Okay. So my camp is July 30th, August 3rd. So, get those applications in because I've already started to plan for camp. So that's how you're going to see this kid and you're going to go to the camp. And that's what you're going to do.
Go to camp. And if they go to camp, that should be a big, Yes.
Okay. And I usually tell people 3 years of camp because I have a first-year program, a second-year program, and a third-year program. After the first year of camp, they will be able to assist in group classes. They will be able to assist in private lessons. They will be able to hopefully understand some of the personalities of the students that are coming in your dojo and how to deal with them. And they should be able to, do little things like makeup drills. And this is the kind of stuff that I teach them at the first year.
Okay.
Great. Major. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. So this presentation, guys, is Master Josh, he usually puts it out there so everybody can watch. So if anybody needs to watch the presentation again, they can. I think last week's presentation is already in the Google Drive. You can also, I believe, ask Christine. She might know if you missed last week. So Andrew, that might be good for you to watch. And if you guys need to reach out to me, I put my email and my phone number down. You guys can always reach out to me, ask me any questions. If you want to learn how to do the schedule that I use, be more than happy to give you a copy of it. And then you put in your own, people or whatever. And if you need to be trained on something, I'll be happy to share that with you. Okay. Everybody have a great day, and we'll all talk later.